cut her off, cut umuntu off. I'm not saying that we should keep people in our lives even when we can tell ukuthi ama-seasons wabo sewandlulile. But I'm also saying ukuthi there's this culture that we've now been taught a person can just have mistakes, and then because a person has their mistakes, then you're like, I'm cutting you off. Don't you have your own mistakes? Number one. Isimo somnotho, economy yase-South Africa ayivumi ukuthi ngingathenga umbhedo currently. Nginezinto eziningi. I know a bed should be a priority, but like turning 31 this week on Saturday, and I just decided, why not just do a young video, right? This actually my Bible app just sent in the verse of the day, and it says, be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 18, and this is in the New Living Translation version. Okay, that is our verse of the day. That was actually that was very, very timeless. I appreciate the fact that it just came in right now when I decided that I'm going to be filming this video. Just gonna be doing 10 lessons, probably here and there. There's certain things that I'm gonna keep on dropping or adding or whatever, and also I'm just gonna be reading off my notes app, because I'm trying to be as concise as need be. I feel like sometimes I feel so shitty when I watch or I edit my videos, because I'm just like, why were you off ramping so many times? Why are you off ramping so much? And people that know me personally know, like in story one for 3 hours, but I'll be off ramping and talking about that and acknowledging that, and I'll literally be telling you about something that was happening Izolo, and I'll try and map it together with something that had happened in 2010 during the World Cup. And it's like, that is just weird business. So yeah, I just decided, let me just write down these notes. The theme is transitioning from 30 to 31, documenting some of my 20s lessons, or lessons in my 20s. Number one, the lesson that I wrote down was, you need to make yourself a priority. You need to make yourself a priority. So me now, in this context, I realized, Guti, in making myself a priority, I needed in my 20s to make decisions and stand by them. And this is something that now I'm growing into when I'm like obviously in my 30s, or that I started growing into in my late 20s. And when I say late 20s, I'm saying 28, 29, delving into 30. I just started realizing, Guti, I need to prioritize myself by making decisions and standing by them. Like if I'm saying this is my no, then I need to stand by my no, even when there are days when I want to say yes, and when there are days where other people are saying yes, but I know Ugutu saying no benefits me in this manner. So making myself a priority, making yourself a priority in the 20s, definitely a must do. That's one of the things that I learned. And lesson number 2 was, friendships change. We outgrow each other. We evolve. There are some friendships that over time have changed. Like there's some people that I was very, very close with or close to. And then over time, I realized, and I think my dad used to say this a lot, that you need to be able to differentiate between acquaintances and friends. So some friendships have just now evolved into acquaintanceships, I guess, if there's such a term. And at first I was beating myself up. I was like, oh, I'm probably the one that is wrong with acrimony. And then in some situations I was like, yeah, she's probably the one that is wrong, he's probably the one that is wrong. But I think over time, and in just like prioritizing like spending a whole lot of time by myself and not associating being alone with loneliness, I got to like gradually understand the fact that we really outgrow each other, and we hardly ever talk about how there doesn't really need to be bad blood. Like we can just be acquaintances, or we can still be friends, but have an understanding of the fact that we won't see each other as much. And we have to somewhat understand that I know that maybe with most of my friends, it's so strange because I'm usually the social butterfly, but now I'm slowly growing into just I don't know, just being by myself. And that's very weird. And I know that it can be something that comes across as very offensive to the next person. That's why I also just have these open conversations to say, I really want to come out and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but financially things are not okay. Or I just mentally I'm not in the right space. And I also really used to love sleepovers. Now I'm just like, yo, what if you're crowd, or what if in the morning you're waking up and so with friendships, I'm just growing to understand routine. They evolve. I know that I had a long-term friendship, and when I say long-term, I'm like, we're probably friends since we were like 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere those young ages. And that person is a person that I haven't spoken to in almost a year now. And at first it used to really, really hurt me. Like it used to really come at me. And then I just got to a point where I made peace with it and I accepted we've evolved and it's okay. And on some days it doesn't really feel okay, but then it is what it is, and that's the truth of the matter. So our friendships change, we outgrow each other, we evolve into being sisters, we evolve into being acquaintances, we evolve into somewhat, somehow, somewhere being strangers, but we don't really need to evolve into being enemies. Like, it is just okay. And then another thing that I learned in my 20s, or that now I'm realizing in my 30s, is the fact that things take time. Things really do take time. I saw this when it came to my employment status. I saw this when it came to my motherhood journey. I saw this when it came to my mental health. I've been seeing it over time when it comes to my relationship with my family, with my friends. And there could be a certain level of awareness that comes through, but implementing or applying the knowledge that you've acquired throughout the years is just something that can take time. Like, so things really do take time. Healing takes time. Forgiveness takes time. Like, things just take time. And I know that in Ecclesiastes, there's a verse that says everything happens in its time. And the more I'm cooler, the more I'm trying to not beat myself up about the things that I'm unable to do right. I'm just like, okay, I'm growing into this, I'm acknowledging this, I'm accepting this, and I realize in order for it to change, it might take time. So things do take time. And I know in this era that we're living in, everything seems very microwavable. Like, not everyone is going to show you the grimy parts or the grisly parts of life. And now that they are showing everything that will be, then it's like, yeah, that's what I also want to acquire. I think someone once wrote to when you compare yourself to Bonang, you need to realize that Bonang has been pushing for years. You need to realize the time in which Bonang was living is not the time that you're living in. You need to respect and understand Bonang's work ethic. You need to accept and acknowledge her journey. So you can't now think that your journey is synonymous to the next person's journey. That's not how it works. So things really do take time. And then another lesson is, you're not a victim of life. And I don't really mean this in a bad way, and I know that it might seem as though I'm coming across as, okay, no, and I want to phrase this right. I'm not saying that we are deserving of the things that happen to us, but I also realize half the time, if we don't accept, take accountability, heal and move on, then we risk the chance of being stagnant for a long time. And I'm going to say this in my own context, I just realized over time, and also when I look back into my 20s, I spent so much time in victimhood. I spent way too much time in victimhood. And if victimhood Leo just robbed me of so many things. So right now, when things happen, I acknowledge the fact that I feel like sometimes it's unfair. I acknowledge the fact that on some days I really don't understand. With senzani lana sivele siyaphoselwa into this thing. Every day we're striving to be better, but on any day singafa. I'm just like, yo. But I also, in the very same breath, I'm just like, I'm not a victim. And every other day I wake up, I'm not a victim to my circumstances. I'm not a victim to the realities of life. I really am not a victim. I'm waking up every day and I'm doing my best. I'm pushing, and I'm not just going to be held back, or I'm not going to hold back because, oh my God, that was not supposed to happen to me. I'm not saying, Guti, we are all going to heal at the same time. And this also took time for me to realize. It took an awesome amount of time for me to realize, Guti, yes, this happened. It's unfortunate. It is not, you are not deserving of one such a reality, but you're not a victim. We need to keep it moving. We need to, we need to move on. And in that very same line, I just wrote here, holding on to the past will not change it. It is what it is. Like, yo, bro, in my 20s, I held on to the past. And I think, Guti, it is because, like, I'll just I'll do an example with, I would make an example with how I had my son, right? I think there was so much condemnation in just being like pregnant as a teenager, but I think what hacked me the most was how so many people were silently waiting for my downfall. And I'm just like, Ngimntwana. So I'm not understanding why, like, an adult would now say to me, yo, Aishem, kanina buntokozo madoda bayakhona ukuthi bayakhona ukuthi like bangacakeka. And I'm like, okay. And there were so many other people that felt like, you know, it was my parents wasted their money when they took me to the schools that they took me to. How ngathatha umntwana nimuse esikoleni esisona sona so la afundiswa khona makhuwa, and then jiki sekunguye on disappointable. And I held on to so many of the things that were said by so many of those people. I held on to so many of the seasons that I was not supposed to, because seasons change, and it took me skatisite to realize that season is long gone. Like, we are done with that season. We are done. And just because I was holding on to the fact that in that season it was very cold, it was so hard for me to be understanding of the fact that right now you're chisa. Like, you say chisa kushapu, you need to take off the jersey. So I was here continuously wearing jersey and a belingi chisa jersey. And in my head I thought, no, I have to keep this jersey on because Uzbanbani said this and that and that and that and that. And then over time I was like, okay, Sigma Kaza and but right now chisa, and I can just take it off and just be comfortable in my crop top, you know. So holding on to the past, like, it really is what it is, and if it wasn't supposed to be what it is, then it wouldn't be that way. So yeah, beating yourself up is not one of those things that will assist. And I think holding on to the past also just speaks to my next lesson. You need to not care what people think. Internalizing people's views or opinions and moving through life using them is a reflection of your own fears. And again, same example, the teenage pregnancy story was just something that I was just carrying, because also I internalized so many people's opinions and views, not also realizing I was silently condemning myself. Silently, I hated myself for the fact that, oh, now you put yourself in this situation, you put your family into this situation. Moreover, you're going to put an innocent soul, an innocent child into this situation that they didn't ask for, because when also you were just not patient with yourself and you just wanted to give in to peer pressure, right? So I internalized so many things that people were saying, and it, like, I held back. I'm still trying to work myself out of that rut of holding back, because over time people have told me, you're so talented, people need to hear your opinions, people need to hear of your views, people need to hear more of your wisdom. And I would agree with everyone, and then silently when I'm with myself, I go back to the fact that who would want to hear someone like me speaking about all the things that they've experienced and just having like a different perspective? Like, who would want to hear that? And it's also because, like, you're internalizing people's experiences, and I'm learning this. I saw this Nodi last, I think I was doing a Facebook live video, and I was like, damn, bro, it was just like one of those epiphanies that just came through when I was just doing that video, where I was like, You need to experience life for yourself. You need to make your own mistakes. You need to have your own experiences, and people speak from their viewpoints. And I was making an example, Uguti, it's just like this, right? So this would be people's opinions, and these opinions go through their childhood traumas. The opinions go through their socialization. The opinions go through their own fears. Their opinions go through their own projections. And then a person, when you're getting this end, you're on the other end, and now you're taking whatever this other person is saying. That time, that opinion has passed through so many of these things, and those things are not your reality. All these experiences, when you get to the other, like when this person like voices out their opinion, if you're a person that internalizes what other people say, then you are taking all of these things and you are not even sifting through them. You're not trying to understand where this person is coming from. You're just like, this is it. This is what we're running with. That thing really did, like, it really did hurt me in my 20s. I'm not even going to lie to you. It did. My 7th lesson was, you need to put all your trust in God. You need to put all your trust in God. And I think there's a verse, it might be Jeremiah 17 verse 5, that says, Babusisiwe othemba labo likuNkulunkulu, baqalekisiwe othemba labo sebantwini. So many times it's ithemba lethu silifake ebantwini, and we seldom realize ukuthi people also just have their own things. You can't just now create your own God out of people. You can't create your own God out of relationships. You can't create your own God out of your education. You can't create your own God out of your parents. You can't. You shouldn't do that, because then when things don't materialize into the way that you had anticipated, then you're just going to turn around and be hating on these people and say, yeah, mina bengikubekile kulesi standard. And there's just this thing where we put people on a pedestal. Just because this person is my partner, you put this person on a pedestal. This person is not supposed to do this to me. And it's like, you also forget they are just people by themselves. You can't just put all your trust in that person and just themba lami lonke likuNontokozo, like njani uNontokozo unendo zakhe, ufuna ukwenza into zakhe, kunama fears wakhe, and then naga succumb to those fears, then where are you then left? So I learned that you need to put your trust in God, because also you stand a chance of losing so many friendships, relationships, just because you're just putting people on this standard, and then when they don't meet up or when they don't rise up to that standard, then I can cut her off. Another thing, that whole cut her off, cut umuntu off. I'm not saying that we should keep people in our lives even when we can tell ukuthi ama-seasons wabo sewandlulile, but I'm also saying ukuthi there's this culture that we have now been taught a person can just have mistakes, and then because a person has their mistakes, then you're like, I'm cutting you off. Don't you have your own mistakes? And when you have your own mistakes, after you've acknowledged them and you've accepted and now you're doing better, do you not want to be given a chance? That's just me. And then another lesson that I learned was, dreams require sacrifice. Dreams really do require sacrifice. You need to sacrifice your sleep. You need to sacrifice your time. You need to sacrifice, you need to understand that instant gratification is not always the way to go. Like, you need to learn how to play the long game. And I'm closing my eyes as I say this, because you reflect and you're like, damn, like my dreams have often required sacrifices, and I lacked self-awareness, or I was way too afraid, or I was way too insecure to just say, I am sacrificing this. I am sacrificing my comfort for me to be uncomfortable, and in me being uncomfortable, knowing very well I'm going to have my dreams be realized, right? I know with radio is just one of those things that really, really just comes at me as a regret. And angeke ngikhuluma mangakini ngithi no, mina I hardly have regrets and stuff. That radio life thing, I have regrets about it, because I think I did UJFM auditions once. I was I was critiqued in a very constructive manner. I'm not gonna lie. Abu Melody Mia just did the most. They critiqued me in the best way possible. But then I chickened out when I had to go back the following year to just audition. And then I did MTV Sugar auditions, and there were some auditions that I had gone to. I think it might have been in Melville, and they were doing something for SAPC 1, not Melville, Randburg. They were doing something for SAPC 1, and also in those instances I was critiqued in a beautiful manner. But I guess Uguti, maybe I was just really afraid of rejection, so I just took that to be some big form of rejection, and I was like, I could never be an actress, I could never do radio, I could never. And again, people that also have been following me for the longest time know that I did radio at Swane FM for quite a while, and I had to leave that space because also it was community radio, and community radio doesn't necessarily always pay. So I was unemployed during that time, and I was very passionate about this thing, but also this thing needed me to travel from town to TUT, and after a while I was like, I'm gonna end up hating radio because I just keep on seeing that I have to constantly ask for money to travel to work. So it wasn't really something being berekela. And again, I hadn't really realized how powerful social media could have been. I would have continued in that space and just started creating content in so many other different ways. And when it dawned on me, instead of me just saying, okay, actually let me try this out, I just condemned myself, and then I backed out. But that said, number 9, you need to invest in therapy. Geez, you need to just invest in therapy. You need to invest in having like a community of people that you can speak to. And I know that with the therapy, like South Africa, when I'm thinking about going to a private psychologist, I'm just like, where will the money come from? But I also realized, Guti, if you are really adamant on ensuring that your mental health is in place, because mental health really is wealth, you grow and you realize, with my mental health is the biggest wealth. Because even if you could acquire financial wealth, but if mentally you're not in a good place, then you won't be even able to like, you won't see the financial wealth, you won't see your financial gain, because mentally everything is not okay. So it's expensive, but in it being expensive, then you have public hospitals. And I know half the time we're like, with public hospitals, I get better, but I just feel like we need to do more research. I know when I had my postnatal depression after I gave birth to my daughter in 2021, I went to Wamhlanga Hospital, and there was an amazing psychologist there. And she really, really helped me through so many things. So I was going there weekly. For the last lesson that I wanted to just put up, that's just something about my pronunciation these days. It actually makes me realize I'm not reading as much. Like, what's lesson? Like, why does it sound like that? The last point on the list of lessons has to definitely be, you won't have your shit together, so don't compare yourself. Like, you literally won't have your, and time and again, this is something that I'm having to work through. Like, I have to have conversations with myself where I'm like, you don't need to compare yourself with someone just because we're in Fundista of Hope together. Like, that was like back in the 2000s. Like, the trajectory of everyone's life has just gradually changed over time. You can't compare yourself to someone that you went to high school with. Now, even if we were in the same high school, who said that we were going to somewhat pan out the same way? So comparison is not only a thief of joy, it is a thief of time. You will spend so much time comparing yourself to someone that is just busy pushing their own things. I know that I've had to, like, when I look back into my 20s, I'm like, I spent so much time comparing myself that I started overthinking. I started being super insecure. Like, one of those things that were like a peak thing in my 20s was like insecurities. And I was just like, towards the end of my 20s, I was like, actually, I think I might be the problem. I think I might be creating all of these fake scenarios in order for me to not work through some of the natural insecurities that I just have. So using other people as scapegoats, like using other people's experiences and what other people have previously said to you as the scapegoats. Like, I just don't really want to do the shadow work. Instead, I'm going to say, yeah, and what mina, I'm not good enough. Okay, best market to tell you're not good enough. After lapho wafa azange ufe, so ilife iyaqhuba. So the comparison thing, and I feel like it's super hard again in this era that we are living in, this digital era. Time and again you are seeing people, you're exposed to so much content. There's way too much content. I'm not gonna lie, there's too much content. Like, some of the content needs you to be relaxed. That would be your YouTube. Some of the content is just fast-paced content, which would be your TikTok. Like, you watch one video and then after that you would have like literally forgotten what you've watched. And time and again, now you're on Instagram and there are pictures that you are viewing, and then there's Facebook. It's PTZ. But take PTZ logo, you need to still be able to sift through these things and be able to have an understanding of the fact that not everything is something that you have to internalize. You don't need to take in everything. But also, take social media breaks, bro. That's also the cherry on top of my lessons. Take social media breaks. No matter how much people can clown me for taking social media breaks, I will take social media breaks, bro. If I ever feel like I'm just internalizing or ingesting way too much content, and I feel as though I've not gotten to a point where I can control the time that I spend on social media, I'll just remove the app, work through everything that I need to work through, and come back to the app and be like, okay, now I need to start being very serious and being intentional about what I decide to ingest. So yeah, that's just basically it. These are just like the top 10, 11. You might look at them as 20 or 15 of the lessons that I learned in my 20s. Like, I just learned these things, and maybe there are just some other lessons that I might have learned, but these would just be a young roundup of everything that I've just learned over time. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Sekuchisa khulu, batini kuchisa ngamanda. So my eyes are changing. I'm squinting way too much. It's just way too hot. I need to put my IC into this jar. But don't forget to hit like, subscribe, comment, share your own lessons. If you're in your 20s, what are some of the things that you're seeing that I've spoken about and that you think you could work on? And if you're in your 30s, what have been some of your lessons that you'd really love to share? And if you just really want to comment, just really comment and say, "Ngisiyakubona Ntosh ufaka iphondo." Yeah, understand. Siyakubona ukuthi you're in your 30s element. Hey, it's just the jokes. It's not a 30s element. I am a sister to a graduate, so I had to look the part. All right. Okay. Before I just go onto this oversharing splurge of mine. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. Until the next video. Bye.